all of you. Squadron Leader Priyanka Verma, Indian Air Force, retired Assistant Manager, Aerospace and Defense, KPMG Advisory Services Private Limited. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Ms. Nayan Nag, Manager, ENY Aerospace and Defense, a very dynamic research and analyst from ENY. Thank you so much for coming over. Dr. Nasir Jamal, Secretary, my colleague, heading the Defense and HLS Committee and many other committees, industry members, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. We are very happy to hold this webinar today. It is very timely, interactive, and meaningful, supported by the Technology Development Board, Department of Science and Technology, and Ministry of MSME for the promotion and the growth of Indian defense sector. We had a similar webinar yesterday, and it was a very, very informative webinar and very interactive, knowing each one of you and the thought which went into it, especially Colonel Kuber moderated it very well, and I'm sure he will do it today. It also PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry is well known to each one of you. I don't need to repeat that we have been incorporated 117 years back, and we have a defense vertical, and we have many other verticals other than defense and homeland security, where we do a lot of interactions. We have more than 153 MOUs with global partners, global organizations, chambers of commerce across the world, and of course, we have very good interactions with them. We receive 20 to 25 inbound delegations. We send 4 to 5 outbound delegations. We also participate in the MAI for various categories of sectors, and display our MSME members are very, very keen to have a dialogue with the international partners. As we all are aware now that the Indian defense industry is at a very, very high trajectory, and there are things with the clarion call given by our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji. In fact, he was there in Munich yesterday, and he was also talking about the defense sector again with the Chancellor there. So it is becoming increasingly more important for the Indian defense sector and the Indian industrialists to start manufacturing defense equipment, defense components, and be a part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat in this sector. The role of the DPSUs, OEMs, and MSMEs are very well known to all of us, and we have been deliberating right from a decade what should happen, how much of direct orders should come to the MSME, how much of work they can undertake, because large section of the MSMEs are already doing exporting equipment and components which are required for defense sector. However, they are not aware of it. There are many, many components and explosives and ammunition which are being manufactured in India and globally, are also our MSMEs are partners in that manufacturing, and they are also exporting stuff. So this is extremely important that we tap these MSMEs who are really good in their work. They are intelligent. They have the manufacturing facilities available with them. At short notice, they can produce things. They can collaborate between each other as a consortium and produce goods and services which are required not only for the Indian defense sector, for the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Shipping, etc., and for the aerospace industry, but also get into the export of all these components. The capability and viability of the defense and aerospace industry is built on the strength of supply chains that we are all aware. The MSMEs are intricately intertwined in that, which I have already mentioned. These are substantially large number of MSMEs who are supplying components and sub-assemblies and systems to the defense public sector undertakings, ordnance factories, defense research and development organization, Indian Air Force, and private industries. In fact, the Indian Navy has already reached a level where they have got 90% of the vendors who are already doing a marvelous job for the Indian Navy, and they are totally satisfied with their quality of work, their speed of work, and their quality of the components and platforms which they are producing for the Indian Navy. But there is a gap in the Indian Army as well as in the Indian Air Force. These being the Indian Air Force being uh, very stringent and very component heavy arm of the defense sector. So it is required to be indigenized in a very big way, but still there is a large need for getting these MSMEs involved with the DPSUs who are producing for the Indian Air Force. And there is a need. This gap needs to be addressed. There is also a need to promote investment in the defense sector, both in the R&D and production, thereby resulting in higher self-reliance and indigenization. While putting in place the policy framework, the procedural mechanisms, the thrust would be on indigenous production and exploring possibilities of exports to other nations that may look forward to supplies from India. In the recent address by the Honorable Raksha Mantri, he shared that around 12,000 MSMEs have joined the defense industry due to government's initiatives. He also said that defense exports from India during the last 7 years have been more than rupees 38,000 crore. Innovation, research and development and the number of startups have increased in the defense industry due to these efforts. We all understand that we have a huge segment of MSMEs, and 12,000 MSMEs only getting involved in defense production is not good enough. There is a need to handhold these MSMEs, to get them involved wherever, whichever platform we are discussing such issues, whether physically or into B2Bs, having a business to business and business to government interaction, and inviting the stakeholders, that is the Indian Air Force, the Indian Army, interacting with them directly, one to one. And that is the aim of PhD Chamber today, that we are holding these webinars with all of you to ensure that we get these MSMEs on board, we get some recommendations from you through these webinars, and try to implement those projects which are required to handle the MSMEs. For example, we have done it for the Air Force. The first physical interaction we did last month, where we got the entire component which were required by the Air Force on display, and the nuts and bolts were explained to the MSMEs who attended. More than 250 MSMEs from the defense sector came and attended the program. They were absolutely enthusiastic about the stuff which was displayed there. They interacted with the Air Force officers. They interacted with the technical experts from the Air Force, and they carried those drawings and components. They took photographs, they took the drawings, and they are now in touch with the Air Force authorities how to develop a prototype. So this is the kind of interaction which we need, not only from the MSMEs of defense sector who are existing, but also create a larger base for getting more and more MSMEs involved, because this is the sector which has no dearth of funds, and this is the sector where there is a great need of indigenization. Nowhere in other sector you will get this money, and you will get this kind of opportunity to have your business growing by acceleration and also producing for the country. I mean, you are going to be a real national hero if you produce stuff, indigenized stuff for the Air Force, Navy, Army, and the paramilitary forces. So with these words, I once again wish this webinar a success, and we believe that there is a huge scope for the MSMEs in defense manufacturing and exports. I look forward to a very meaningful discussion during the webinar, and hope to call out implementable suggestions in the interest of the industry, and we'll make these recommendations both to the MSME ministry and also to the defense ministry. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your very comprehensive address, sir. Welcome address, and you have set the tone for the whole discussion. Thank you, sir, once again. Now, sir, since the MSMEs are playing a larger role, but the only problem which they are facing, the bigger problem, is that the funding part. They need to have funds enough to survive and to thrive also. So this discussion is basically on the funding mechanism. What are the avenues for funding for the MSMEs in aerospace and defense, especially in aerospace and defense? And we have a competent now, Ms.
We
Nair.
could not hear you in between, Dr. Nasir. There was a gap between your what you are speaking now and what you started with. So kindly repeat.
Sorry, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. And this is, I said that the what you have addressed is basically the scope and the role of MSMEs in defense manufacturing. But the only bigger problem which the MSMEs now are facing is actually the funds. What are the avenues of funding for the MSMEs in aerospace and defense? And this is the whole discussion during this webinar will lie around the funding mechanism for MSMEs in defense and aerospace. And our competent moderator, Ms. Nayan Nag, will be taking over me to moderate the whole session. And over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jamal. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I welcome you all to this webinar on funding mechanism for MSMEs in aerospace and defense. As has already been highlighted, today India has nearly 12,000 MSMEs involved in defense manufacturing. We had nearly 8,000 MSMEs in 2020 when the government of India, under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana, launched the draft of the Defense Production and Export Promotion Policy, DPEPP for short, in 2020, August 2020. And there is a target set in the policy for achieving 1,75,000 crore worth of defense production by 2025, including 35,000 crore worth of defense exports. The targets and the discussions around this has also resulted in the fact that the MOD looks at doubling this number of 8,000 to 16,000 by 2025. So I think we are somewhere there with 12,000 MSMEs already in 2020-22. One of the focus areas of this policy is indigenization and support to MSMEs and startups. And in this regard, the Ministry of Defense has launched the Srijan Defense Portal, which provides the details of the products that are currently imported and are required to be indigenized by the Indian industry. DPSU service headquarters provide all the details of these products, including their specifications, on this portal. For the financial year gone by, that is 2021 to 2022, 6,683 items were imported, worth 2,280 crore. The idea of sharing these statistics with you is that indigenization of these products provides a great opportunity to MSMEs involved in defense production. The Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020 has reserved the cases with AON cost less than 100 crore for MSMEs. The Ministry of Defense has set a target of 70% indigenization by 2025, and DPSUs are mandated to source at least 25% of their products and services from MSMEs. While I have highlighted the opportunity, I would like to detail out certain limitations that the MSMEs have been highlighting time and again. Starting with the first one, that is limited support in form of common machinery to reduce their cost of operations. Secondly, complex and lengthy certification process and complex capacity verification process. Limited access to display their capabilities to the Ministry of Defense, OEMs, DPSUs, end user, other stakeholders. And the most relevant for today's discussion, as highlighted by Dr. Nasir Jamal, the longer gestation cycle, the typical, which is typical to the sector, and this puts the smaller industry players or the micro, small, and medium enterprises under working capital pressure and access to credit facilities that is not easy. With this, I would like to welcome Mr. Amit Rai, the Assistant General Manager, SIDBI, to please share his views on what are the initiatives of SIDBI in funding mechanisms for MSMEs in India. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. A very good morning to all of you. On behalf of SIDBI, we welcome you to this program. Along with me, I have my colleague, Mr. Ganesh Kumar, who will be, so the idea is like first we'll be making a presentation on the various SIDBI schemes of assistance. And after that, if any queries are there or there are any further points to be discussed, they can be taken up later. So first we are going ahead with the presentation part. Over to you, Ganesh.
Thank you. Good morning. So PPT is, can you see it, sir?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. So as we, all of you know that SIDBI is the apex institution for promotion and development of MSME sectors and coordination of all the other stakeholders who are dealing in MSME sectors. These are the initiatives or our key areas where we are helping MSMEs by way of institution building, digital initiatives, funding the ecosystem, and other things. This is our setup. We have a head office at Lucknow and one Eastern Zonal office and 10 regional offices and 83 branches. Directly coming to the financing options, what we offer. The first is a RISE scheme, which we provide for capacity building, for expansion, for capacity enhancement, for modernizations.
So basically, the idea behind this scheme is to provide the much needed modernization facilities. Because I think, as it was said, when we are particularly dealing with the defense sector, so the demand of the defense sector is that primarily they require high precision equipments. It is not the run-of-the-mill kind of things which they would be accepting. So primarily the main demand is of a high quality product. And for the high quality product, what you need at the input end is the high quality machines which are able to produce high precision products. So under this scheme, this is basically for equipment financing and the equipments which MSMEs would be requiring to cater to the needs of the defense sector.
So basic eligibility for any existing MSME who is manufacturing any goods required to be at least 3 years of operation, having cash profit in the last audited financial results, having good CIBIL and CMR score, and we provide interest rate linked to the repo rate. Repo rate is as on rate 4.90, so it's range between 6.40 to 7.70. Depending on the rating and the requirement of the loan from the borrower side. Repayment is normally for 7 years, and we can fund. There are two models of funding. One is FD-based funding, another is collateral-based funding. In FD-based funding, we do 100% funding of machinery or equipment, and collateral-based funding, we provide 70 to 75% of the cost. We fund 70 to 75% of the cost of the machinery or the equipment.
Here in the key feature is, see, under any scheme of debt financing, the promoter is required to bring in some contribution. Say, for example, if the cost of the project is 100, then in that case, say the bank would be financing to the extent of 75, and the promoter would be asked to bring in 25. So here under this scheme, in this particular scheme, we are not going for 75% or 70% financing of the project. We are going for 100% financing of the project. That is, the entire 100 rupees would be coming by way of bank loan. The only requirement is the money which the promoter was required to bring in towards his commitment for the project, that is being put in as an FD on which the promoter is earning interest, and the only consideration is that the FD is pledged to SIDBI for the tenor of the loan. As and when the loan gets fully cleared, the FD amount is repaid to the borrower along with the interest on the FD part.
And the second scheme, we call it STAFA, SIDBI Thematic Assistance Entity. It's basically for the greenfield projects where the borrower is starting from scratch it for land acquisition, for civil construction, and PI. That means the entire project can be funded through this scheme, where eligibility for borrower has to be minimum experience of 3 years for new units, where business borrower is having minimum 3 years of experience. And so we fund this scheme, the greenfield projects, and interest rate for them is around 6.90 to 8.20. It is again linked to the repo rate, and the repayment period is normally for this up to 7 years. And again, in this case, we can fund up to 70 to 75% of the total cost. And this is for greenfield units. We also provide a working capital facility, and this is provided through by network of our banks. We have a tie-up with the 3 banks: Yes Bank and Central City Union Bank and IDBI Bank, which will provide working capital facility to access day-to-day activity. Eligibility is the same. We provide working capital facility to the bank or to borrowers who are solely banking with us, or who is not availing any working capital facility as on date with any banks. And this facility is provided on at the rate of MCLR link. MCLR links rates we provide, with starting from 7.55%. There's another facility which will provide for funding for installation of rooftop solar panels for existing units having profitable track records. And this is again the 2 model of funding: 100% funding in by way of FT, or 75% funding where collateral facility is available for that. It is for rooftop installation of rooftop solar panels. Solar panels. There's another scheme which is concentrated for where the borrower is having allotment from HSIDC. We can fund for acquisition of land allotted by HSIDC. Again, the interest rate is based on MCLR and repayment of 4 years. This is provided fund in the 2 stages: 1 stage for acquisition of land, and 2nd stage for construction of factory building and acquisition of machinery. So this product we provide funds in 2 stages for the completion of the entire project. So these are the schemes which are in the nutshell, which we are offering right now to MSMEs. If any queries, can ask us.
Thank you, Mr. Amit Rai, Mr. Ganesh Kumar. I think a very informative presentation. Thank you very much. You spoke about the ARISE scheme, you spoke about Sthapan, STAR, and Safal scheme. We have a couple of questions, if it's okay. You spoke about the ARISE scheme, where the promoter is required to provide an FD on which they earn an interest, meaning that you provide 100% of the funding for the project.
Yes.
Is that understanding correct?
Yes, right.
Okay. And for Sthapan, you said that that scheme is for greenfield units. A basic question that comes to mind is that how can a greenfield unit have 3 years of experience if that is the eligibility criteria?
Promoters having minimum 3 years of business experience in the same line. Promoters having experience in the same line of business of minimum 3 years business experience.
Okay. And what about the first time then?
It could be like this. See, basically, what do we understand by a greenfield unit? A greenfield unit or a greenfield entity is one such which doesn't have any past track record of its financial results. So it could be like this: a new company is formed, the company decides to set up a project. The project comprises acquisition of land, setting up of a building, bringing in plant and machinery, and manufacturing a product. That company decides it. But the people who are behind the company, the promoters of the company, they are well experienced in that field. Because if the company is also new and the people behind that also they do not carry any experience, then it becomes a different condition altogether. Here, what we are saying, the entity is new, but the promoter should have some business experience or relate in the related field.
Okay, that portion I've understood. For example, there is an IIT graduate, let's say, and they want to start a venture. How does that scheme benefit them? How does Stuff Fund benefit them? Or are they not eligible?
See, per se, we don't say that they are not eligible as such. The only thing is, we need to see when we are doing a project appraisal. As you may be also aware, project appraisal comprises of some 4 or 5 broad aspects, amongst which the management appraisal is one of the key aspects. What we do under management appraisal, we try to look at the capacity and the capability, the competency of the people who are going to run the show. The people are competent, they are capable. Okay, fine enough. If the people they lack the competency, you are talking about an IIT graduate. So let me put it differently. Why only an IIT graduate? Why not any other graduate? See, competency and capability cannot be defined by the terms of the institution or by your qualification or degrees. These are all different parameters. One cannot presume that if a person is an IIT graduate, so he'll be able to successfully run the unit. And we have seen cases, we have seen now, we have had experiences when the IT graduates, technically they were very sound, but when it came to doing business, they didn't click.
Right, sir. It was just an example that I took. I did not mean that others are not competent enough. It's just an example that I mentioned.
No, I'm
So,
not twisting that.
yeah.
See, what I'm trying to submit is any brand or any particular degree is not a certification of your competency, or we cannot simply presume that if you have some X qualification, so surely you will make it big.
No. Let me come in. I think the moderator was just trying to give an example. So it can be anybody.
I'm also trying to clarify.
Let's focus on the funding.
Yeah,
we are talking about Stapan. Stapan is a new venture. A new venture can be started by anybody without an experience. So when somebody does not have experience, a new graduate who's coming from some village university or from anywhere, he has a great idea, and that idea is being liked by, let us say, anybody. So can you fund? Let us say he comes in an ITEX. That's the point.
This is a broader eligibility criteria. We are not debarring anybody, because if you go to the next point, that is a promoter contribution. He is required to bring in 25% of the project cost also. So we need to look into that aspect also. The person may be brilliant, but if he doesn't have any thing to back him up, then how do we take care of it?
Okay, that's right. I think that clarifies a lot about the scheme and the 3 schemes that you spoke with us about. Yeah, you have something to say.
See, here basically we have to understand what we are talking about. We are talking about debt financing here. Here we are not talking about any startup financing or those venture funding kind of things. This is a purely debt financing scheme and needs to be looked into that perspective.
Understood, Mr. Rai. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you for that presentation. I think it's clarified a lot of doubts that at least I had, and I hope it was informative for our audience. Thank you very much, Mr. Amit Rai and Mr. Gyanesh Kumar.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker today is Mr. Partha Roy Chaudhary, Commercial Lead India, Lockheed Martin Corporation. In one of the events recently conducted by PhD Chambers, Mr. Partha Chaudhary stated and shared the details of the important role that MSMEs in India are playing in the supply chain of Lockheed Martin. Mr. Chaudhary, I hand over the stage to you to please discuss your views on how an OEM like yours has developed a supply chain with nearly 140 MSMEs, if I recall correctly, and what is the mechanism that you follow. Over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nan. I think good morning, everyone. My point is First and foremost, Lockheed Martin is having 17,200 suppliers in 17 countries. That's the number we have. And in India, we have got more than 800 suppliers through us and our JVs. Um, and globally, more than 8,600 of our suppliers are small business units. So a lot there, and we see a lot of problems every day as far as the coordination and operations are concerned. And thanks that Sidbi is here today, we can talk a lot of them, how we are trying to do things here. So firstly, I want to say what are the challenges MSME faces. We need to understand that. I don't know if really people understand what MSME challenges are. So firstly, the challenge is a timely access to finance because they have a working capital to go. Suppose example, they're providing Lockheed Martin 3 million order. Just imagine for that 3 million order, I'm sure more than 2.5 million is something that is required by that MSME at any point of time. And mind it, while he is preparing that order, he has to take a next order. For that, he may have to give a bank guarantee. For that, giving that bank guarantee, as it be said, 25% should be the equity. So another 25% of maybe you take a 4 million or $1 million has to be fixed in their bank in the form of an FD. And the rotation goes on. And what we just spoke here is it is always said that it is easily spoken than done. It takes months to get any BG bank guarantee, months for any MSME to give it to anybody. So where is the solution? So in that particular 3 to 4 months in which the bank gives them approval, will they stop the work? Will they not finance their laborers, or will they not pay the paychecks? So those are the few things that we should not forget. And other than that, there are scams in India, a lot of scams. A $3 million or $2 million scam for an MSME wraps it up. It wraps that particular industry. It can be from the raw material provider, it can be from the trader, it can be from anybody. That's a different issue. So how much is government taking care of that is also a big challenge for an MSME. And then again, diversifying between the short term and long term funding strategies. It's not only that they're going all these things day to day in a short term, then there is a long term things. Now lastly, there is a challenge which I see is COVID and force majors. During COVID times, everything froze, everything. For force major opportunities, what the bank said that time is we will waive off 1 month, 2 months. The effect is much larger than that in working capital as well as financing opportunities. So there is that question out here. The regular question about short-term funding is what happens when a MSME gives order to us, a company like bigger like Lockheed Martin or Boeing or Airbus or anybody else. They do not get a payment immediately. Talk about Israeli companies, they have to give a full BG of the total order amount. So suppose they're taking an order of $10 million, they have to give a $10 million worth of bank guarantee to that company. So $10 million is already absorbed. Then they have to have another 10 million or maybe 8 million for their working capital. Where do they get that money from? And it's an MSME minded. So this account payable, which is always there for them, is almost 3 to 6 months. And they have to pay for the raw material to their suppliers, and those supply chain has to be maintained, and every time it's always an intent for any MSME that they paid faster, and when they have to pay somebody they have to pay slower. It's a VCS chicken and egg story here. So account payable and receivable are a challenge. Then we have to think about cash and cash equivalent along versus the market securities. Whatever marketable securities you have, how can and how much can you, vis-a-vis cash and cash equivalent, can you trade it off? That is something we have to think about. And we should know how to do a more of a working capital management. Now, saying all this, what are the way out? I think in India presently we don't have anything called as a account payable tradable option. In US it is there, in Europe it is already established. So can our share market have an account payable or account receivable trade there? Can the share market, will the account receivable be enough for SIDB to fund anybody? Will that be an option for them also? Can they pay any supplier or MSME within 30 days? Banks of ours, a lot of options are there. Citibank, HSBC, IDBI, some of them should be mentioned. I think A lot of unexpected expenses come up, a lot of slowdown growth come up, and MSMEs need cash. And mind it, I'm telling you again, $1 to $3 million of cash mismanagement can wrap up a MSME anytime. So $3 million, I mean here it is more than a few crores and crores of rupees. Yet with the revenue of that MSME, one mistake by them and they will be wrapped off. The CFO and the finance manager become the most important persons for such MSMEs here. Now, our banking structure is quite solid, but the issue is that the flexibility is quite less. So I'll request that there should be the banking partner in India should be more flexible, and they should have innovative strategies to stay ahead of the curve, and they should be able to give innovative funding to our MSMEs if we need growth. Yeah, we can go on with a single order year and year, but for MSME to grow at an exponential manner, our funding strategies, our banks, and our Ministry of Finance as well as MSME Ministry have to think little deeper into the strategies. That's all from my side, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Partha Chaudhary. It is always a pleasure listening to you because how candidly you talk about the system, the ecosystem, what is happening, what are the challenges, and then you don't leave it there. You provide recommendations, and I think we have very important key stakeholders today that have, I hope, noted down these recommendations. You talked about, especially the one on account payable and account receivable mechanism that already countries in US and countries in Europe are following. You talked about this gestation period, which I also tried to highlight in my introductory remarks, where this rotation just goes on. So with that, I think we've heard the views of an OEM, and it is time for me to invite Captain Nikunj Parashar, co-founder Sagar Defense Engineering Private Limited, an MSME based out of Mumbai, which is developing autonomous solutions for the Indian Navy. So, like I said, we've already heard the opinions and the views of an OEM. I would like to hand over to Captain Nikunj Parashar to please share his views of actually facing the pain points and the challenges that you face as an MSME. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nayan. We are still in a growing stage. Thank you to turning us into an MSME, but we are a startup still.
Oh, okay. But the
And
excellent work that you're doing, I think that day is not far. So please pardon me for that.
no, absolutely. Thank you so much. Certainly, we look forward to it. So I'll start our journey, and a small presentation to put across
Please.
on this. Share. Madhula, I'm unable to share. There it is. I hope my slide is visible to everyone.
Yes.
Now,
Yes,
as I said, we are
very
a
much.
startup, and in its I'm seeing what Partha has said and very rightly mentioned about it, because this is a benefit which we saw a lot in Europe on the trade receivables, which we have done with our company in Europe. This is what we look today, what Saga Defense Engineering is. But 2015 this is where we were operating out of 120 square feet room. Now, as it is rightly said that any business, especially in the defense, has a lot of strong and a long gestation period. So you need the right support system, the right ecosystems for a startup actually to take on. The biggest challenge, what we saw in these times were, across is getting qualified in the contracts, PBG, EMD. Now, these all required policy changes, and also you required a certain type of supports from the government organizations. So we were at the right place, and Oil and Natural Gas Corporation of India invested in us, and also IDBI Bank through Maharashtra Aerospace and Defense Fund, they invested. Now, when we say across, and Partha mentioned scams also happen when your right suppliers are not in and your products are not coming in. Even in the startup culture, where we see a lot of startups coming up every day who want to enter the defense sector, but they really understand what they are looking at? And I feel our journey before the policies kicked in. Actually, we started working since 2013, and 2015 we actually formed a company, and in this journey, we saw the policies coming in, and we really saw ourselves on the benefiting side of major of these policies, because when you enter the defense market, you already know there's a lot of problems. So the mindset here, that the highest level and federations like you all, PhD chambers, ENY, NASCOM, everybody has been really working very strong onto it. And as we moved on and we realized the potentials happening in 2018, the Ministry of Home Affairs, along with DPIT and the Indian Navy, came on board and they supported us to get the Defense Manufacturing License Unit. Now imagine your customer, your ministry, all coming in together. So there is a healthy ecosystem which is coming up. The problem which we still faced then was, yes, especially the EMDs and performance bank guarantees, which was very difficult. But by 2018 and 19 is where the changes started happening in, and the startup policies also started kicking in. But we were still finding it very difficult to survive because the access straight to the funds were very difficult. Uh, you know, and certain products which were getting inducted in the road phase while we were working in, the supports were there. But how do you really fund yourself to do a lot of R&D? Because defense space and proving your technology at the defense space level is very difficult. It's not a joke, where you can come into an FMCG category or a B2C category where you put across your products to 100 of people and then possibly somewhere you would learn it. But in defense sector, if your product fails, you fail. So this was something, a problem which we were facing now and then. But what we realized and what we got, the infrastructure and mechanism, even at the government end, they were learning. And the Maharashtra Aerospace Defense Fund, along with ONGC, really accelerated our growth. So we saw there were takers. The problem was visibility of these funds to other players also. And the only thing what we realized, these funds were looking at startups where the ideas were actually getting inducted into the product. So the risk taking ability was there, but the risk taking ability was not at such higher level where they would just, invest into a proof of concept or into an MVP. But as the scenarios have been changing today, and you look at TDF, the way from 10 crores, the funding rounds have gone to 50 crores. I look at IDEX, the best part of IDEX when we got this time, in the DISC 5, and this is something we really want to mention. Pain points are there, it's always going to be there. But as a startup, what our learning has been very strongly is if you have a will to way, there is always, a way people there to reach you out. What we realized in IDEX, when we got the problem statement from the Indian Navy, and they asked us to develop 20 autonomous underwater vehicle. Now, to build one vehicle, you're going to spend $500,000. And if your first vehicle is then done, then you can actually mass produce. So how do you do 20 AUVs? Now, this was a problem statement, so we kept sitting onto it, and we had a lot of interaction with the IDEX team. And the best part, what we could see here is the IDEX thing started sending it across to different DPSUs, to different private players across, and they said that, go and talk to them. Not only that, we got a very strong hand holding from the highest level in the ministry, and then they made sure that we go ahead and partner with a defense public sector unit and where they would fund it. Now, this was not part of the policy of IDEX. This was something which was experimental basis case where they said we'll try this out and see how we can get it along into the framework. What we realized is, if the policy is right, and if you understand your technology, I think there's a support mechanism across. Even you as an entrepreneur or as an MSME would have to go across and look in which way there could be a turning around, because at times the people in the ministry and with the policies which have been set in for a very long time, they are also looking at learning phases. And we understand when a policy kick in, there are two ways to look at it. There's a pro also and there's a con onto it also. We smartly, at times, we take it to our benefit. So the people are very supportive in that aspect. Plus your credibility into the market scenario, how credible you are, is your product performing, you're looking at it. So we saw this happening across with us, and that really helped us to really scale ourselves across. Not only that, the other part is where we are looking at one gamut of doing maritime platforms. We realized there were other opportunities which were run by TDF, like Dare to Dream project. Now, Dare to Dream was an award money sanction where you win first prize, second prize, and third prize. And possibly as an innovator where you have a single MVP idea or proof of concept, you are just a single person or you're a team of people. So, and an organization, when the Dare to Dream project came in, we tried looking at it that is it a way we could participate into it, though the problem statements were not matching us, what we were trying to do. But then we realized some way we could, apply into it, and we came out as one of the winners. It didn't stop there. Now we are in certain final stages of very high worth TDP projects and TDF projects, which we are part of it. So there is a lot of awareness level which needs to also at people and student and startup and an MSME end, it's to be required, which we feel at times is not there. And I think that's one of the major problem statements across here, because funding is available. You should know how to present your case. I mean, people at times find it very difficult even to write a proposal. And that's the biggest challenge. Imagine a graduate with three people coming in or an engineer. I mean, it's very difficult for them to write a proposal. So possibly, I feel the certain pain points are in terms of awareness, in terms of how to go about actually writing these proposals, where I know the seminars do happen. But at the ground level, at the startup level, if you go out and see, the problem is still persisting. So I feel for me is more on the awareness level, we could solve these problems and possibly then it could help us to realize those fundings across. As of now, at Sagar Defense, the way we have come up is we have come up through absolute government route. In between, people had asked us to change our name, and then we started using a slogan that our name of defense is because we help you to save 60% of the capex and 40% of the opex, to divert from the defense sector. But today, what we feel with the policy changes in the right set of framework, and even the government is learning, the organizations like you are really supporting in that cause, and that has really put in a lot of positive framework, and that is why people like us have really been able to stay in this market for 6 years, even in the COVID time. So when the world in COVID time were running into their houses, business were going down, we were really flourishing, and we actually set up a factory across that period. So that's what that's my 2 point of suggestions from my end, and I feel a lot of awareness still needs to be there in funding mechanism is there, and if we can really create that awareness level even at the grassroots level, even in colleges and engineering colleges across, I think the whole gamut of opportunities are going to open up more. With that, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you, Captain Parashar. I think one of the key points, and if I were to ask anybody, they would highlight that it is an encouragement that startups are actually benefiting from the policies of the government of India. You talked about the healthy ecosystem. You talked about how these policy changes has helped you, and how in 6 years, I mean, many congratulations. And Sagar Defense looks to be an excellent example of a success story, and we wish you many more successes. I just have one question for you. Why did you not seek any funding from SIDBI?
Receive any funding from SIDBI is not that. In 2015, when we started off, and I would like to name the person, Mr. Amay Belorkar, who is now into IDBI and heads Maharashtra Aerospace Defense Fund. He actually came across to us. He came, he saw a vessel with his team. Till 1 year, he followed us, and we were not sure then because we were trying to, I'm a sailor from the Merchant Navy, I have my own money then, and I was investing. So we did not raise the funding. SIDBI was actually very forthcoming to us, and they said we will help you out. It was us who do not took that funding. And when Amay went into Maharashtra Aerospace Defense Fund, and when we were raising our phase, he came across to us again and walked out and said, Nikunj, this time you are going to take it from us. I proudly say that now we are raising Series A, and it is again Amay's team, and the Maharashtra Aerospace Defense Fund. They came in again to bridge our funding. So it's been there. I would, I looked at the SIDBI presentation across. I think SIDBI has all different ways to fund you. And it's only thing at times we as entrepreneurs are confused when we look at a lot of checklists, a lot of paperwork to put across. And when you're
Right.
new
So
in
I
the
think that there I'm sorry to interrupt because you're making a very valid point. That is where PhD Chambers is to help you.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I think that was an interesting talk that you presented, and I think you've highlighted a very
Then I think your net has gone.
Yeah, that is the problem with WebEx. Generally, it happens.
It does.
I think then Colonel Saab, you are on mute. Colonel Saab, you are on mute.
Colonel Kuber, sir, you are on mute, sir.
am I
Man,
audible?
yeah, you are audible now.
Okay. Some issue with, I think, yeah, technology always is not very helpful. So okay, sorry for that. So like I was saying, you mentioned that every startup and MSME has unique challenges. While funding may be one of the key challenges or limitations, but it's not just that. Funding mechanisms may also, or support to MSMEs may also look at, and I think it's a discussion for another day on other aspects as to what is the sector like, what are the nitty-gritties, what is the regulatory aspect, and like I said, PhD Chambers is there for you to help you in that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Captain Nikunj Parashar. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, there. Pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Squadron Leader Priyanka Verma, Assistant Manager, Aerospace and Defense, KPMG Advisory Services. Madam, I welcome you to please present your views on this topic, and please share your views on what are the funding mechanisms for MSMEs in aerospace and defense that we follow and should follow. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I will just share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Not yet.
Yes, now you can see.
Yes.
A very good morning to all of you, and thank you, PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industries, for giving us an opportunity to connect with the MSME. So here today I will be representing SIDBI's initiative for aerospace and defense MSMEs. So SIDBI is the first bank who has taken lead in taking a step towards strengthening and supporting the MSMEs in aerospace and defense sector. SIDBI has taken various initiatives. Under this project, we have conducting various outreach events to connect with MSMEs and look for their challenges and problems being faced by MSMEs. And we have also upgraded them with the latest government policies and various schemes launched by government for the upliftment of MSMEs. The SIDBI under this project has also launched its very own web portal, which is exclusively for aerospace and defense MSMEs, where they can register themselves, which is of cost, and they can display their products and their facilities. So SIDBI is also making a tailor-made banking product, which is being discussed today in the morning, that funding is the main problem of MSME, and particular to this sector, it is a very peculiar sector which has delay period of payments. So SIDBI has collected all the inputs from MSME via its outreach events, and now it is in line for making a banking product which is akin to the needs of this sector. SIDBI has also tying up with DPSUs and OEMs so that we can connect with their MSMEs and make them aware of various government initiatives and initiatives get an aerospace and defense readiness assessment for their firm by filling up a simple questionnaire. They can get updated to the latest updates and insight, as in this portal there is a facility for latest updates where there will be a latest updates pertaining to the sector will be flashed. They can access to all the tenders under one roof. Here we have under the tender page, they can get the tenders of various DPSUs, and the DPSU site will redirect to their tender page. The DPSUs and OEMs and larger firms can match make their requirement with the MSMEs which are onboarded on the portal. The MSMEs can also download the key reports related to A&D sector, which are being released time to time by larger enterprises. Presently, we have 4 to 5 latest A&D sector reports on the portal. The portal you can visit by simply visiting the site, that is defense.sidbi.in. Here you can see the portal. Here you can see the portal page. It is a landing page of the portal. On the right hand corner, the MSME can register themselves by filling up their email address and the password of their choice, and after that they will get an verification link, and by clicking on the verification link they can build their portfolio. The DPSUs and OEMs can choose the MSMEs via category. We have made certain categories for the MSMEs, and you can choose the MSMEs pertaining to your requirement by searching on the category. Once MSME is registered on the page, the page can be shown as like this. They can provide a brief overview of their firm. They can put in their contact details, which is flashed under their name. The product and services being offered by them, they can fill in all the details, and it will be visible under their page. The recognition and services being done by them, the facilities, capabilities, and the customer can also pitch in. Under the latest update page, they can be updated by the news pertaining to the A&D sector, upcoming events by SIDBI, industry insights of A&D sector, press releases, and the policy updates which are being done by government time to time. Under the tender page, they can get a link of all the DPSUs and their tender portal. By clicking on the link, you will be redirected to the tender page of that DPSUs, and where you can see the tenders being released by the DPSUs. Under the useful link, you will get all the useful links like direct loans from SIDBI, defense acquisition procedures, defense procurement procedures, etc. There is always also a provision of hand holding support by SIDBI. Herein, when you click on this this page, you will be asked for assistance, and if you have any query or any loan requirement by SIDBI, you can fill in there, and your query will be answered within 48 hours. Now, SIDBI has conducted 25 outreach events all across the nations, and some are with MOD also. And we have found what are the various challenges being faced by MSMEs, like they have already covered by Lockheed Martin and Saga Defense. But we have collaborated and we have connected with almost 5,000 to 7,000 MSMEs through our outreach events. And we have seen that the main problem faced by MSME is of funding. And due to funding problem, they are unable to grow. So they have lack of the sourcing of raw material, which was hampered during the COVID times very much, because a firm which is manufacturing in Kanpur, whose raw material was coming from all the way to Gujarat. And during COVID times, the supply chain was disrupted. The longer working capital cycle, delays in procurement, high interest rate, no extension of it, and no loan for new MSME. So SIDBI has taken all the inputs from all across the nation by MSMEs, and they are making a noble banking product which will address all the needs of this sector. And with this, I finish. And if you have any query, please connect with us and do register on portal, which is free of cost. Thank you. With this, I finish.
Thank you, Squadron Leader Verma, for sharing with us SIDBI's efforts in supporting MSMEs in so much detail. And thank you for taking us through the portal. I think the audience has benefited a lot from that. I just have one question for you. How much or how many MSMEs has SIDBI financed till date? What has been the amount that has been dispersed? And what was the maximum funding that SIDBI has done to any MSME?
See, in this project, the banking product is under pipeline. So it will be launched soon by SIDBI. And otherwise, SIDBI has funded many MSMEs in other sector. But particular to this sector, this project is, the banking product is under pipeline. So it will be launched within 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Okay, I think we'll wait then. And right, so I think that brings us to the end of the session today. A very interesting session, a very good topic, and very important topic, I would say, for MSMEs. And before I hand over to Colonel K.V. Kuber, Director, Ernst & Young Aerospace and Defense India, I would like to share a slogan that he always says before he does it, that if India lives in villages, then industry lives in MSMEs. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hand over to Colonel Kuber for to please address the audience and give the concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nayan. Ms. Nayan Nag is a very accomplished aerospace engineer. For those of you who don't know her, she is a BTech in aerospace engineering from Amity International. She did her MTech in aerospace engineering from the Royal Melbourne Institute, Australia. And she did another MTech from the Aachen Institute, Germany, in aerospace materials. And she worked as a research scholar in German Aerospace Center. So that's been excellent thing for Nayan till she joined EY, and I think just one second, I have to remove this connection here. I mean, I don't know where it is getting connected and why it is. So okay, so I think that's been the journey, and I think it was an excellently moderated session today. So Nayan, congratulations and compliments for this excellent session that you moderated just now. So I want to open this thing for a few questions. The first question I always have is, let me start with my colleague in arms, squadron leader Priyanka Verma. Let me start with you. With your experience with SIDBI,
Yes, sir.
do you really think MSMEs need financing? Do they need funds?
Yes, sir.
If there are three needs which MSMEs have, what should be the first need?
Sir, we have done various walkthroughs also, sir. The funding is the main need.
Okay. So who doesn't need money? Anyway, but the point is, what is the first need of an MSME? I think if you ask me, my little experience with MSMEs is, there are a number of people who are willing to fund. There are venture capitalists, there are Junjunwalas, there are any number of people out there in the market who are willing to fund. What they really need, if you ask me, is business. Somebody like Sagar Defense, you see, when I see Nikunj and the way he has gone about it, they need orders. They need sustained orders. It cannot be a one-off. See, people like Nikunj have invested their life savings, everything into the startup. And he so proudly calls himself a startup in spite of Nayan trying to insist, no, you're an MSME. But I would say, Nayan, this is the time to shake hands with him, because he'll be the next Ratan Tata of this country. Because the way these startups are going and the way they are, they are expanding, I think it is inspirational. The journey of some of these startups. In fact, let's talk about Sagar since he's there. So Priyanka, if I may again ask you, if somebody like comes and says, I've got this great idea, and tomorrow the country is asking for a hail or a mail or something like that, and I have the technology, I can do sensors, I can do this, I can do that, but I can't expand. I need something like $100 million. You think, what do you think SIDBI's reaction will be to that?
Sir, as SIDBI has also bound by various government policies. So obviously they will check for the eligibility criteria of that firm. And if the eligibility criteria is being filled, so they will support the, depending upon the how much amount they can fund in.
So that is a very diplomatic government answer. But I think Nikunj provided us a very beautiful answer in his own talk. And I want to talk about that. He said there are orders, there are policies, there is a government, there is everything. But the government found way, government of India, Ministry of Defense, the most conservative, the most, I would say, if I would ever not like to interact with any ministry, that should be Ministry of Defense. Because it's so difficult to go inside, and if you go inside, it's so difficult to come outside. They will snatch away your phones, they'll do everything else. They'll make sure that you're as uncomfortable as possible when you're inside. And that ministry has gone out of the way to find an innovative funding mechanism for Sagar and for any number of people like Sagar. And I think he's given an answer to that. And the answer is what the Ministry of Defense has done. Let us not restrict ourselves to the laid down procedures and policies. Let us not become prisoners of procedures. You see, we are all prisoners of procedures. We are in that bloody cell. You know, we are inside that cell. We can't think beyond that letter. We can't think beyond that spirit. Priyanka, I'm not telling you anything. Don't keep a long face. I mean, I'm just trying to say that policies, procedures are all just guidelines. We should shake off these things. And like Nikunj said, I think we should go ahead from that. I think Mr. Amit Rai, AGM SIDBI, has given a fantastic presentation. In fact, along with his colleague, I think that was a very good presentation where he talked about Arise, Stapan, working capital, and STAR, and things like that. Sharpen. So I think, you know what? The question I always have is, do we need schemes? Do we need laid down procedures like this? See, on one side, there is a prime minister who goes around the world and says, you know, India is this and India is that, on which he's right. As late as yesterday evening, he met with the president of South Africa and talked about, you know, defense cooperation, amongst other things. Mr. Ramaphosa, as all you know, Cyril Ramaphosa was the chief guest in 2019 in India for the Republic Day parade. And here, you know, the way Mr. Modi is met by the various leaders, it was inspirational. Why? Because he breaks barriers, because he breaks protocols, because he breaks procedures. He doesn't break, he bends procedures. Bend it like Beckham. And I love that movie, Bend It Like Beckham. We have to bend procedures. If we become prisoners, then we'll say, okay, this is my scheme, I can do only this much. But when Nikunj comes and tells you, I want $100 million, straight away Priyanka Verma should wear her Air Force thinking hat and say, yes, I think I'll find a way. SIDBI is a great organization. They are, you know, being a government bound by procedures, but we know how to come out of it. Let's work a way in which, you know, we try to find what's good for the industry. Good idea, good funding, good development, and I think that's what we are actually looking at. And thank you, Priyanka, for that excellent presentation. You, in fact, what I liked on the whole thing was free of cost registration. So I do not know if anything that is free of cost is worth it, but yes, I'm going to try it. The free of cost registration, because it is free. And I think that was a great initiative by SIDBI, and I think you guys are doing extremely well. Partha did talk about, you know, 8,000 small business units they have in Lockheed and how they are bringing all that together. They understand he talked about scams. I mean, I really don't know, because at MSME level, what Partha says is so true. Even $1 million here and there and they're gone. So I think what you see, I have this question. I think I can see Mr. Rai joined in, the AGM has joined in. I want to ask this question to him. The question is this.
Yes, sir.
And I think I'm coming to the question. I'm building up for the question, because I think Nikunj brought this issue in a very subtle manner. When an MSME has to pay a raw material supplier, he has to give 100% advance. He has no choice, because he buys raw material in kgs, 20 kgs, 30 kgs, 40 kgs. So he has to pay 100% advance. He's got no leverage. He's not a Godrej. He's not an L&T. He's not an NSIC, which will buy in thousands of tons. So he's got no leverage, number one. When he has to pay his suppliers, he has to pay in advance. Otherwise, he will not get his supply chain working for him. But when he gets payments, it is slow. So I see that you've got a lot of schemes. But can you have an umbrella scheme which says, any problem of MSMEs, I'm here, I'm coming first, I'm going to put my step forward along with the brilliant Air Force officer we have here, and we are going to do this, and we are here for you as the first line of support. Is that something you can think of, Mr. Rai?
Sir, if I remember correctly, what you are trying to put forth, it is already been covered under the MSMED Act, because the MSMED Act, it gives that special privilege to the MSME supplier that if they don't get their payments within, say, 90 days or so, they have full right to go to the court. They'll be duly compensated along with some penalty amount of 18% or so that provision is already there. Now it depends on the MSME person to what extent he wants to exercise that option.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I've read the MSME Act in full, and I was part of it. I was an advisor with the Ministry of MSME for 2 years. So I was there and I've done that. Thank you very much for that advice. But the point which I want to bring about is, ladies and gentlemen, we've had an excellent session today, and with the dynamic moderator bringing in various questions to all of you, and Priyanka Verma there, in style, doing a vertical takeoff and giving giving a very fine finish to the whole session. I think we have got a good session. The point is what Nayan actually stole the words from my mouth. If India lives in villages, industry lives in MSMEs. Industry has to recognize that. PhD chambers, all the time we recognize this, and we at PhD chambers give maximum emphasis to MSMEs. All the time we think as to what can we do more, because any amount you do for them will be so much less. And it's a cycle over there. And I think we have to identify the gems. They are our gems. And Ernst & Young, we are the strategic partners with the PhD chambers, and we are here to actually work with the chambers and work with the MSMEs and inspirational MSMEs like Saga Defense. I think we are there for you. So Nikunj, thank you very much. Mr. Amit Rai, thank you very much for that. And squadron leader Priyanka Verma, thank you so much for that excellent presentation that you gave. Nayan, thank you so much for being an excellent moderator today. Sachin, Shaurya, I think you've been the backbone of this whole thing. And Dr. Nasir Jamal Sahib, Dr. Nasir and I have been concept visualizing this for a long time, how we should go about and do it. Nasir, thank you so much. And with the great support from our Secretary General, Kansanial, with whom we talk, and of course the President of FICCI, of PhD Chambers. I think we've got a very good lineup over there, and if we can do anything for you at any time, PhD Chambers is always there. Our gates are open. It's located in one of the most posh areas of Delhi. We can host you for a good lunch, and of course, beyond that, give you great advice. Thank you so much, and please join the next session, which is on artificial intelligence, because I should tell you, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to tell over there. I'm going to tell them that, I'm no more what I am. I'm not what I am. I'm not going to be manifesting myself in this personal form. There is going to be a bot which will look like Colonel Kuber, and that is AI in defense. So you're going to see in the next session, I'm not going to be there. It's going to be that's AI in defense. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks all the
Thank you,
participants.
everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Nayan.
Thank you.
So should I continue this only, or should I?
No, you'll have a separate link for that.
Separate
We'll
link.
have to
Okay.
log in. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.